Mantras of our Divine Mother. Our Divine Mother says, offering is the placing of your entire being with all its moments, true and false, good and bad, right and wrong, before the Divine for transformation. With my love and blessings, says our Divine Mother. Words of our Divine Mother, taken from the collective works of our Divine Mother, Question and Answers of 1950-51, Volume 4, Chapter 15, date 14th April. Question. Sweet Mother, the whole world is full of poison, of doubt, hesitation, depression. You take it in with every breath. If you exchange a few words with an undesirable man, or even if such a man merely passes by you, you may catch the contagion from him. So long as you belong to humanity, and so long as you lead the ordinary life, it does not matter much if you mix with the people of the world. But if you want the divine life, you will have to be exceedingly careful about your company and your environment. For this, our Divine Mother says, to try to solve this problem, ascetics used to go away into forests and sit under a tree there. Of course, they had not to fear any contagion from other human beings. But it is very difficult to go to the very end of this resolution, for it quickly gets known that a saint is sitting under a tree in meditation, and immediately everybody rushes there. Not only does he not escape from the difficulty, but he increases it. For there is not a thing more dangerous than to teach others. You know just a little, and you begin to teach others, and you are immediately compelled to say more than you know, because people put questions to you which you cannot answer unless you are a hero of silence. Our Divine Mother says, in the world, those who want to pass themselves off as spiritual teachers, when people come and ask them something they do not know, they invent it. Therefore, if in your inner discipline you begin to pretend, you may be sure of falling into the worst hole of all things. Pretense is most ruinous. In the world, you may perhaps pass from what you are not, for people allow themselves to be easily deceived, and that will not lead you to a catastrophe, although if you exaggerate, it always leads to a catastrophe. But in spiritual world, you don't have to deal with human beings. You have to deal with the divine. It is impossible for you to pretend that you are this or that, for the divine knows better than you, doesn't he? He knows what you are, and it is not what you will say which will influence him. Our Divine Mother says, in all spiritual disciplines, the first thing you are taught is not to narrate your experiences to others. If you need to clarify your mind, if you need to clarify your mind, tell your experiences to a spiritual guru, your spiritual teacher, and to no one else. And even before your spiritual teacher, you must be very careful. When you present or explain to him what has happened in you, if you observe yourself closely, you will see that there are things in you of which you are not wholly aware of. In your experiences, often there are gaps, interruptions in the continuity. It is extremely difficult to get at the continuity of consciousness and to follow the moment to the end. Then, if you narrate your experience without wanting to add anything whatsoever, without failing in sincerity, even so you put in what is not there. When people come and tell me something since our Divine Mother, an inner event, they find me at times inattentive, not attaching much importance to what I am being told. It is not that, it is that I listen to what is within. I see what is perfectly exact and the little facts that have been added. And it is because of this, generally, I do not encourage these things. Our Divine Mother says, I know that people may feel relieved, comforted if they can tell me what has happened, but then one must come with a wonderfully scientific spirit. A scientist would never tell you it is this, it is that, unless he has made all the possible experiments to have the proof of what he says. And for spiritual things, one must follow the same method. Instead of saying, I did that, things happened like that, one must say, I had the impression that things seemed to be like this. And it looked as if there was a connection between this and that. And not only as a conversational phrase, but as something which expresses truly a mental state. Our Divine Mother says, if you seek for a clarification, you yourself must not explain the thing in advance, for once you have given me the explanation, I have no longer any explanation to give you. You bring me flowers, for instance, flowers of all kinds, but you do not arrange them. You tell me, here I bring you some flowers. It is for you to make a bouquet out of them. In this way, it is much more easy for me, isn't it? Our Divine Mother says, I can take those that I need and give you the explanation of what's happened. But if you bring me a ready-made bouquet, where I see the flowers which are not flowers, which are imitations, I have nothing to tell you, for I need solely things which are to say pure. Therefore, remember this advice. I am always ready to listen to you, but do not bring to me ready-made things. Give me the exact record of what has happened, and even so, you may be sure that as soon as there is a mental transcription, the mind always knows how to fill up the holes. It likes things to be logical, continuous, and without your knowing it, quite spontaneously, it supplies elements which are missing in your experience. I do not blame anyone. I know that it is a spontaneous phenomenon. One must be extremely attentive in order to be quite exact and precise.
Seigneur, intégralement, elle est mon bonheur et ma loi.
May thy will be integrally done, O Lord. It is my happiness and my law.
Next, from 8th Feb 1951, in the same volume of question and answers, dated 14th April. Question, sweet mother, the outer being is like a crust. In ordinary people, the crust is so hard and thick that they are not conscious of the divine within them. If once, even for a moment only, the inner being has said, I am here and I am yours, then it is as though a bridge has been built, and little by little the crust becomes thinner and thinner until the two parts are wholly joined and the inner and the outer becomes one. For this, our Divine Mother says, have you ever thought of unifying your being? Have you been disturbed sometimes to see that now you are one person, at other times, at one time you wanted to do one thing, at another time you cannot do it, that you find yourself facing an individuality which you can call yourself, and at the same time there are many parts of this individuality which escape you? I have not attempted the unification of the different personalities which may be in me, but I have tried to put them face to face, the good opposite the bad, and I have never found in the good a sufficient dynamism to fight against the bad. Our Divine Mother says, have you never thought of your judgment of what is good and bad was a purely human judgment, and that it might not necessarily tally with the judgment of the divine presence within you? The so called bad things you could not get rid of were probably things not in their place, things not properly balanced, and it would be a great pity if they were eliminated, because perhaps a part of your energy and of your divine presence would disappear at the same time. Our Divine Mother says people who do not do yoga under the direction of a guide follow ordinary moral notions, and at times they feel very perplexed because, with all their goodwill, they do not get the expected results. That happens because generally they wish to approve of their being instead of transforming it, and because moral notions are very bad. In the work of unification of the being, you must need have imagination enough to be able to put the moments you have, the moments you wish to keep, to put them before what you are capable of imagining as most akin to the divine presence. Naturally, at first, it is only an imagination quite far from the truth, but it would help you to get out a little from moral narrowness and also from the limitations of your consciousness. Our Divine Mother says, for example, you have the idea of putting what you are, what you do before a consciousness which is at once infinite and eternal. These two words do not perhaps make much sense at the beginning, but they compel you to break the limits and to put yourself in front of something which surpasses you. So much on either side that its judgment cannot be the same as that of a human mentality. One must begin absolutely like that. If you try to analyze yourself according to moral principles, you may be sure of going contrary to the divine plan. Not that the divine is amoral, mark that, but this is not a kind of morality that mankind understands at all. It is not the same. Ambition has been the undoing of many yogis. Our Divine Mother says there is a temptation that every teacher meets at each step for the very simple reason that ordinary humanity, in a general way, not being in personal contact with the divine powers, understands nothing of what an illumined consciousness may be and asks for material proofs. It is on this demand the most religions are established, and for reasons which I may frankly call political, they have put at the origin of the religion more or less number of miracles having been performed by the founders and thus more or less crudely encouraged by ignorant people, taking the necessity of seeing what they call miracles in order to believe the divine power of a person. This is an extraordinary ignorance because it is not at all necessary to have a divine power or consciousness to perform miracles. It is infinitely more easy to perform miracles with the help of small entities of the vital world who are more material enough to be in touch with the physical world and act upon it than to live in the consciousness of the higher regions and to work upon nature only through the intermediary of all the other domains. Our Divine Mother continues to say, we have said there is only one safety, never to act except in harmony with the Divine will. There is one question, how to know that it is the Divine will which makes you act? For this, our Divine Mother says, it is not difficult to distinguish the voice of the Divine. One cannot make a mistake. You need not be very far on the path to be able to recognize it. You must listen to the still and small, peaceful voice which speaks in the silence of your heart. I forget one thing, to hear it, you must be absolutely sincere. If you are not sincere, you will begin by deceiving yourself. You will hear nothing at all except the voice of your ego, and then you will commit with assurance, thinking that it is a real small voice, the most awful stupidities. But if you are sincere, the way is sure. It is not even a voice, not even a sensation, it is something extremely subtle, a slight indication. When everything goes well, that is when you do nothing contrary to the divine will, you will not perhaps have any definitive impression. Everything will seem to you normal. Of course, you should be eager to know whether you are acting in accordance with the divine will. That is the first point, naturally, without which you can know nothing at all. But once you are eager and you pay attention, everything seems to you normal, natural, then all of a sudden you will feel a little uneasiness somewhere in the head, in the heart, or even in the stomach. Generally, one doesn't give it a thought. You may feel it several times in a day, but you reject it without giving any attention. But it is no longer quite the same. Then at that moment, you must stop no matter what you're doing, and look if you are sincere. You will notice a small black spot, a tiny wicked idea, a tiny false moment, a small arbitrary decision. And that's the source of uneasiness. Our Divine Mother says, you will notice then that the little black spot comes from the ego, which is full of preferences. Generally, it does what it likes. The things it calls or it likes are called good, and those it does not are called bad. This clouds your judgment. It is difficult to judge under these conditions. If you truly want to know, you must draw back a step, look And you will know then that it is this small moment of the ego which is the cause of the uneasiness. You will see that it is a tiny thing curled back upon itself. You will have the impression of being in front of something hard which resists or is black. Then, with patience, from the height of your consciousness, you must explain to this thing its mistake, and in the end, it will disappear. I do not say, says our Divine Mother, I do not say that you will succeed all at once the very first day, but if you try sincerely, you will always end up with success. And if you persevere, you will see that all of a sudden you are relieved of a mass of meanness and ugliness and obscurity which was preventing you from flowering in the light. In those things which make you shrivel up, prevent you from widening yourself, opening out in a light where you have the impression of being very comfortable. If you make this effort, you will see finally that you are very far from the point where you had begun. The things you did not feel, did not understand, have become clear. If you are resolved, you are sure to succeed. This is the first step towards unifying yourself, becoming a conscious being who has a central will and acts only according to this will, which will be a constant expression of the divine will. And it is worth trying. And I may tell you from my personal experience that there is nothing in the world more interesting. If you begin making this effort, you will find that your life is full of interest. Of the ordinary people, at least a third of this kind is of dull boredom, and all that gets volatilized, everything becomes so interesting. The least little thing, the least casual meeting, the least word exchange, the least thing displaced, everything is full of life and interest, says our Divine Mother.